I've talked about Peggy, I've talked about Bill, I've even talked about Luann. I haven't talked about Khan. Let's talk about Khan. Also plug in my Discord. To those who may be new, let's go over Khan really quickly. Khan Sophanusenphone, alongside his wife Min and their daughter Connie, they're neighbors to the Hill family. The Laotian couple moved away from their dictator-ridden country. He revealed in Canada that he spent 2 years in the Killing Fields, a site in Cambodia where people were killed and buried during the Khmer Rouge regime. They moved to California before they moved to Arlen. With this, Khan works a middle management job to barely scrape by, while Min serves as a housewife, both demanding highly of Connie and working as hard as they can to get her the best opportunities in life. This often includes sucking up to a richer part of the Laotian cloth, Ted Wasanasong, an affluent member of the Nine Rivers Country Club, often trying to get into the higher ranks of society through pleasing Ted in any way that he can. Despite such high words, Khan is generally known for being very envious behind Ted's back and also arrogant to the other neighbors on his street. Generally, he doesn't associate with them and is generally rude and not hospitable towards Hank and the crew, often calling them rednecks rather than their actual name. To some, Khan means well and just wants Connie to have the opportunities that he never had. To others, Khan is a prime example of pessimism, creating and locking the jail that you had wished to escape with short-sighted habits. I'd love to hear about how you guys feel about Khan in the comments below. With that being said, this episode dives into Khan better than my little paragraph could, and now that we all have a general idea of Khan, let's begin the episode. The episode begins by showing how popular Rainy Street is with a realtor named Abby Holiday, stating that Rainy Street is one of the most in-demand streets of Arlen. This scene builds up the value of Rainy Street fairly, the street that Hank and the crew live on, and will be seen later in the episode. However, forget all of that. We get into Khan, Min, and Connie, and how Connie will be going to a prestigious summer school because she did everything right.
Dad, I haven't made it into the program yet. I just had the interview. Of course you're in. You're perfect grades, all the right extracurriculars, and you've wasted countless hours volunteering.
Like with Bobby Goes Nuts, Connie's character suffers from a lack of development, and she's very underwhelming here as well. She serves to be spoken through other characters. For example, in the former episode, she wasn't a character but more of a vehicle to get Bobby to be bullied. In this episode, she's also not really a character, but serves as a trophy to Khan, who uses her as his emotional shrine, doing everything that he can for her. And while some people may point to that and consider it to be no problem because it displays a type of parenting that involves an overwhelming amount of helicopter parenting and high standards irrelevant to the child's wants, needs, and independence, you're right, but at a cost. Yes, it kind of shows a commentary on this type of parenting, but you're raising Khan's character up at the expense of Connie, who can provide great commentary in both episodes if she just spoke. Ask yourself throughout this whole episode, how does Connie feel? She's the driving factor in Khan and Min's decision making, so she's significant enough for that but not important enough to get a few lines beyond this? Of course they don't make it, specifically because the college has filled the quota with enough overachieving Asians. No. Really?
Connie's a really smart Asian girl, but I've got a boatload of them, pardon the expression. I mean, good lord, give me a white kid from a public school with Connie's specs and that kid could waltz in here.
You telling me Connie didn't get in because she's an overachieving Asian?
Here's a great example of where you could have built Connie's character. She's very sheltered, book smart, and doesn't display a lot of social skills, and it could have been a very deep moment to show her that some people are just not on her side, no matter how hard she tries. However, this isn't to say that I am mad at the direction that it does go. I will say I did enjoy Khan's reaction to reading the letter, only picking out words such as regret to inform and unfortunate, because that is the way that most of us would read college letters. I mean, does anyone really care about them? Khan turns to his affluent Asian acquaintance Ted Wasanasong, who says it's easy to get in.
Just give them a $10,000 donation.
His character is so interesting because he treats Khan with such little self-awareness that I'd be surprised if he can recognize him out of a crowd for something beyond his skin color. So it is then when Khan breaks down after presumably hours of crunching numbers to somehow squeeze 10,000 out of somewhere to get Connie in this school.
But I am just a middle management ox, and no matter how hard I work or how hard Connie studies, we all just stuck here.
There's a scene right after where he pulls out for work and takes a look at the alleyway that has Hank, Dale, Bill, and Boomhauer in it. He sighs, thinking about the fact that his life may stay here, and he doesn't enjoy that future. Again, while there's a lot of arrogance and envy in Khan, it isn't unreasonable to want to work hard for something greater, and it can be very frustrating to hit a glass ceiling. We see him in traffic, looking very miserable, probably deep in thought as to where his life will be if he keeps this up. Being constantly pestered by his boss, he unfortunately will be a little late due to needing to fill up his car with gas. This is where we meet Elvin.
Looks like you could use a new mirror.
No, I'm member of Silver Star Service Team at dealer. VIP shuttle, free Wall Street Journal. Thanks anyway.
It's very interesting to see Khan, while in this depressed state, still feel the need to act superior, stating all of these accolades and add-ons that honestly do not help his case. It really shows you how deep in his own head he is, that even when he's doubting his life choices, he will outwardly not show you that fully. And even if it comes out a little melancholy, brag about his accomplishments anyway. When you compare him to Ted, the difference between their arrogance is that one is actually shown to be, at the very least, outwardly confident because one actually has money, and the other is Khan. Elvin here gets into Khan's vulnerable state, telling him that he's his own man and no one tells him what to do. Even though Khan tries to fight it, his boss stocking his pay after being on time for over 500 business days was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Take a good look at yourself, friend. Are you rocking in the free world? Are you?
Go to hell!
This reference begins the process of Khan slowly giving up on life and its responsibilities in order to become happier and, in his eyes, freer. He shows this side to the guys in the alley, and they don't have much to add. I know this is King of the Hill and Hank and the guys play big roles in almost every episode, but here, they are side characters. Where I think they benefit, where Connie has been tarnished, is that we can all agree that Hank and the crew are already fleshed out characters. How much do you know about Connie that isn't connected to Bobby or her parents? At least Joseph went through that whole growth spurt phase. Wait, even in that episode, Connie was a side character. Wow, she really gets tossed aside in this series. We then get to a fundamental Khan scene, at least within this episode.
Your boss called 3 times today. You're gonna get fired.
I got a new boss and I love him. Me! There's a paradise out there where nobody works, nobody cares, nobody have plans or dreams that can be crushed. Come on, man. Let's just give up.
I love this scene for multiple reasons. A, we get to see how he was already hanging on by a thread and is fully assimilated onto this lifestyle that he tried so hard to combat. So it shows that he's been thinking about this longer than he would admit. B, it brings zero subtlety and vagueness to the table. Khan is done, and he does not want to play in the rat race anymore. He's willing to settle, and he doesn't want to pursue dreams that will be crushed. He's perfectly fine where he is now. C, we get to see how he communicates this to Min, which involves a lot of imagery of being free and not having any dreams crushed, which to me probably echoes the conversations he had with her from moving to the United States, and probably also from moving from California to Texas, because he did that as well. It shows that Min really wants to support Khan in anything that he does, and brings back that rebel side to him that he had long ago before he joined the corporate world. D, Min talks about books that she doesn't want to read anymore, or writing a check to NPR.
I'd never have to read another Toni Morrison book for book club or write another check to NPR.
It shows that she also had to do a lot of stuff that she didn't want to do. And lastly, when they bring up Connie, they offer a reason, putting the validity of it aside, that she shouldn't have to waste
Half her life losing at the rigged game.
It shows that Khan really doesn't want Connie to witness how much is stacked against her unfairly out of things she cannot control. It's kind of endearing in that light. We then see a montage of the house becoming more and more unkempt, as well as Khan and Min having fun. They don't seem uptight and seem genuinely happy. Alongside them, they make sure to show Connie often studying, trying to block out what her parents are doing. In that sense, I enjoy Connie's performance. However, because of how essential it is to the plot, it's light praise, as I'd like to see something a little bit more optional. Something you didn't have to put in the episode, but you wanted to, because you wanted to develop Connie a little bit more. We'd also see that the house is being foreclosed, and because of their behavior and appearance, the houses around them are becoming harder to sell, connecting the beginning exposition to this.
Fried food, no studying, the TV's always on. It's horrible. but hopefully it'll be over soon.
I wish they extended this segment because of the sheer potential it has. Here we see Connie talking about how she wishes it was over, and Bobby thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. We definitely would have been okay with fewer thoughts from the guys in the alley. And we could have done away with the cat fisting scene. Yes, fist, not fish. As even my autocorrect gives me the "you're stupid" look. And speaking of that, listen Grammarly, stop giving me that look before you go the way of the Clippy. Speaking of unnecessary clips, we have Peggy getting out of her car to shout at Abby for wanting to knock down the price due to Con and Min's behavior. She basically repeats what that scene was meant for when she was in bed with Hank. So why do we need the scene with her shouting at Abby at all? It does feel like I harp on Connie at this point a lot, especially given the title, but a lot of this can apply to Min as well. The only reason I center in on Connie more than Min, here at least, is that they're doing this explicitly for Connie, so it's hard to see this dedication with such a limited reaction from that person. Speaking about the white trash in front of him, let's talk about Lucky. Although we'd know in the series that Lucky and Luann would be together, that actually surprisingly happens much later in the series than I remember. This is season 8, and Lucky and Luann have yet to meet. It's actually so foreign to see Lucky in the background, and not interact with Hank. I also appreciate seeing Connie in the background.
Con, I'm worried about you, and
You want me to have Mud Dauber rough this clown up?
You so much as touch my husband, I will knock you into next week.
Peggy, it's not threatening to hold violence over this guy's head. Try marriage. Even though Hank could barely get a word in with Con, we do get to see Min. Min is all over the place in this episode. First, she's like Con and wants her daughter to overachieve to win this rat race. Then she's tentative to Con's lifestyle. Then she's having fun. Then she seems to completely lack self-awareness. And later on in this episode, she'll be confused about the lifestyle she's in and end up hating it. She's all over the spectrum for someone who doesn't talk much in this episode. I don't see it as progression. I see it as fitting her wherever the story needs a character to do what she does in this episode. We also get the ticking clock of the bank beginning procedures on foreclosing the house. The same house that Connie lives in, showing that Con and Min may end up moving off Rainy Street. So as I said, Min is confused about the lifestyle she's in when she's taken to the kitchen to debone squirrels. Then she walks away from Con when Elvin puts a brick through the glass to steal records. There's also a part where Lucky describes his origin, which I believe this is his first appearance in the show, and that's pretty cool. He'd have a lot of fun episodes beyond this though. For some reason, Elvin becomes a sim and goes from being friendly to Con to insulting him. Part of me thinks it's because he's intoxicated. But honestly, he looks like he still has his marbles with them. So I can't really believe that's what the episode wanted us to believe. This is genuine, sober enough thoughts.
You ask me, she made a damn fool out of you. She took your El Camino and your two little teeny tiny marbles with her.
You want to see my marbles? I'll show you my marbles.
Hey, I like this song. Hey, you're a beta male. Excellent discourse from the gentleman here. It seems a bit forced but necessary in order to get Con into possibly the riskiest activity of them all, sticking, or basically fighting with 2x4s. We also get Min alone, which, thank you, finally we can get some development here. Con and Min speak and we see that Min just got lost in Con's wild fantasy, which again doesn't seem like the first time given other episodes. I also enjoy how in this episode Min kind of mentally goes through how she got there, and how it links back to Connie, stating that her parents are drunk, her father left, and she's going to be homeless. She shows deep remorse under the pile of garbage, bills, and late bill notices, and it's actually a really good scene. Hank tries to track down Con and realizes that he's sticking, and for some reason, Buck knows about it. Okay. A very dangerous sport is displayed to us, with two unnamed rebels clocking each other in the head with the parents of Plank. Hank meets up with Con, and we get to the biggest reason why I think this episode is the best Con episode. The fight between Con and Hank begins here. We see that Hank tries to appeal to Con's valuables, the same ones that he holds in high light, saying that the house is going to be taken away. Con responds with, everything has already been taken away, which shows that Con has mentally let go of these things, because what's the point of working hard for better living conditions if you don't meet the other person's high quota? He'd also ask Hank to swing and knock him out. It shows that he has little to no regard over his health and safety anymore. He's checked out and is living the fast life. Whatever happens, happens is what this scene represents.
Oh, what choice do I have? We flee horrible dictatorships, learn a new language, and then work hard and study hard. And our reward for doing everything right is to be told, go to hell. You work too hard. You study too hard.
It's the words of a man who's snapped. It's the speech of a guy who's given it all, and he's finally broke down after being told because he gave it all he had, that is why he won't succeed. This episode humanized Khan in a way that other episodes portray him to just be the snob neighbor. He's that way for a reason. He's a jerk, but he's not malicious at the cost of everyone else until he snapped. Then he became the bad guy, after toiling the company line and getting Connie into the best position that she can be, so she doesn't have to do what he's doing for her. However, Hank points to Connie, saying that even though her parents gave up, she did not, and that's why you have to keep going. It's because Connie knows that other opportunities will come, and she needs to be in the best position to take what comes next.
Yeah, that's right. Connie like a beautiful lotus growing out of the muck. That's her hook!
Although that draws out the anger of the rednecks, Hank and Khan escape pretty much cleanly. This episode ends with a scene showing how Connie went through turmoil and that's why her application was late, appealing to the college with her story. That gets her into said school without having to donate 10 grand, and that was The Redneck on Rainy Street. Overall, it was the best Khan episode of the series despite what I had to say about the other characters. I enjoyed the adventure that came with it, and I also think that the tiny things such as this being Lucky's origin point, and the conversation between Khan and Hank and Min, that made this episode one of my favorites. What King of the Hill episode should I cover next? Let me know in the comments down below. Until then, special thanks to the supporters of April. And until next time, take care. Alpha out.